Hello, everyone. We are live. And we are ready. I am so excited that you guys have stopped by and decided to join us at the Speaker Circle, which, if you've never heard of the Speaker Circle or you're not familiar with it, make sure that you go ahead and join this group. And it's a space for anyone that is looking to get into public speaking. Maybe you're already a speaker and you're looking to scale, or you're just looking to connect to like-minded people to gather and talk about that. And that's the whole goal of the Speaker Circle. And once a month, we have an expert come and share some things with you as you are growing in your business, growing. Some people look at speaking as a business, and some people do it just because, they enjoy it, they love it, and they're an expert in their area. And so they speak about that. So you're a speaker as well. So there's different types of speakers. And so, again, you can join our group. If you go on Facebook, you can go My Speaker Circle, and you'll be able to find it there. So today, I am super excited about our guest today. And so I want to share with you guys, if you are an event planner, if you are a speaker, a lot of speakers end up hosting their own events as well. This is the message for you today, okay? Or if you've been to an event, and let's keep it real, the event was like, what's going on here? Maybe they need some tips, help them out. That's the best gift you can give them, is sharing this video with them today, okay? So I'm going to tell you to come on in the room, get ready, have a seat, get your pen, get a piece of paper, because I want you guys to take a lot of notes. And the goal is that you will learn how to scale on your online conferences, online summits. We know that everybody is really going to that platform now due to COVID. And some people will stay that way for some of their things once COVID is over. So the goal today is to share with you how you can do a great conference online, a great summit online. So again, this is for those that are doing conferences already and those that are new to it, those that have never done it but thinking about it. I'm going to tell you, if you're a speaker, still come on in, because one day you might decide to host a small gathering or anything like that. So you definitely want to take some notes today. So I'm not going to be before you long, because I know you guys want to hear our speaker today. And I want to say in advance, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat box. That way, at the end, after the presentation is done, I will be able to engage our wonderful expert with the questions that you have, because the goal is that you will get your questions answered, and also that you will know how to connect with her afterwards. So who am I talking about? Yes, I am talking about Jennifer K. Hill. Y'all not ready for this. Okay, let me tell you about Jennifer K. Hill, because some of y'all never heard the name, but let this name ring in your ears real good, because we got the expert here. We did not come to play today in the Speaker Circle, okay? Jennifer Hill is an author. She's a speaker. She's a TV and radio host. She's an entrepreneur, and she is a thought leader. Guess what, y'all? She has written not one, but 2 books, okay? So she is an expert in that as well. She has authored 2 popular white papers as well. And guess what? She's built a she's built a solid foundation and company, but guess what she did? She sold her first company. How old was she? 38, y'all. 38. She sold her first company. At 38, some of us still trying to figure out our left from right. What we gonna do with our life? This lady is on it, and she is here on our platform today, and she is ready to share with you what you need to do. I'm not done. It's just, I have to share all this because I'm excited, because it's important to know who you're talking to. It's important to know, wait a minute, who am I taking advice from? Do they know what they're talking about? Let me tell you, yes. Somebody say yes with me. Yeah, she knows what she's talking about. Why? She has appeared on many major outlets around the world, including BBC News, ABC, NBC. Look, all the alphabets. ABCD, all the alphabets. She's been on there, okay? Fox and E. And guess what? She was even interviewed by Conan O'Brien. He's hilarious. But he had her on his platform. She hosts many popular shows on Awake TV. And have you guys heard of Dr. Deepak Chopra? He was interviewed by Oprah. But guess what? He was interviewed by Jennifer too. And she's here to bring the noise. Are you ready? I'm ready. Okay. She has interviewed many leaders around the world. And this is what I love about her. When she's not hosting, when she's not speaking, she loves to give back. Can somebody say give back? Somebody say her give back is real. Her give back is real. Do you want to know how strong her give back is, y'all? I love people that give back. She has built not one, but 2 schools. Come on, y'all. 2 schools in third world countries. She like education is for everybody, baby. Everybody. And that is how strong her give back is. So she's given to us today, you guys. So I hope you are ready. I hope you guys are ready because I'm ready. I know I've been talking too much, y'all. You know I like to get hype. So today, just to wrap it up, we are going to learn about an online summit, how to put one together, right? How to connect to influencers. I didn't even list everybody that she's had on her show, you guys. I mean, big name people. How do you connect to those people? How do you get the press release to grab the attention? You guys want attention to what you're doing is important. How can we get that word out there? And you know what? Organization is real, y'all. Look, I need to take some notes. Organization is real so that the execution can be flawless. And that's what we're going to learn today. So, we cannot hug, right? It's COVID out here. But what can we do? We can show some love by showing some hearts. So make sure Jennifer needs to feel y'all love. Do y'all want her to bring it? Then y'all need to bring some hearts. Bring some hearts as I bring her on here and show some love for Miss Jennifer K. Hill. Woo woo!
Oh my gosh, Lenice, I don't want to talk. I want to sit here and listen to you do your thing all day. Like, I could care less about putting together an online summit. This is the most fun I've had. I just want to watch the Lenice show. Who's Oprah? I want to watch Lenice's show all day, every day. I love your energy. This is so wonderful and amazing to be here with you. You are fantastic, and I want to be like you when I grow up.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I'm so excited. So I'm going to step back because I know that they are ready to hear you, and I am too. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you. That was the most fun I've ever had being introduced for any speaking thing. It's so great to be here with everybody. And Lenice, you rock. I love your energy. This is so much fun. I was not an expert at this a year or two ago. Life is amazing. You just have to embrace exactly where you are at and follow your calling and follow your purpose. And around March of this year, I had thrown a lot of events in person pre-COVID. I had thrown parties with hundreds of people, sometimes upwards of 400 or 500 people. And like many of you, I had not yet thrown an online event, but that did not stop me. I was actually sitting on my couch in Paris, and it was right before COVID really peaked. I think it was around March 6th. And at that time, I thought to myself, I was reading a book by Greg Braden called Divine Matrix. And in the book, Greg Braden said, if you get 1% of the population of a community meditating at the same time, you can shift the consciousness of that entire community. So at that moment, I literally picked up the phone, and I had never put an online event together before. And I called Deepak Chopra, Amanda Masters, many of the people who I already knew and many I didn't know. I spent that whole next 5 or 6 days up until the event I put on, calling and reaching out to influencers. I'm now friends with the mayor of Paris on LinkedIn because of what I'm going to teach you today. And just reaching out to people, where we created multiple hundreds of thousands of people meditating around the world simultaneously on March 9th. And then that turned into something that's now called the Coalition. Hi, Natasha. Thanks so much. It's called the Coalition for Global Unity, which is 52 weeks of world leaders coming together in meditation. And I have to throw a hat off to Teresa Collins, who really taught me so much from Resonance Science Academy. She is the queen bee of putting on events. She's been doing this for 20 years, and she began to mentor me through this process. So I thought it would be helpful. I'll share with you some of the experiences that I've had from putting on live events in person as well as online, and then kind of bring it all together in what I've learned over the last 9 months doing this. And so I put together a PowerPoint. I'm going to be straight with you guys. I am not a huge fan of PowerPoint, but there are some positives to it, just to show you some of the visual things. And I'll certainly have Lanice share this PowerPoint with anybody who wants it, because there are resources at the end that I think could be valuable. All right, so we're going to go live here. Let me just share the screen and go to here. Perfect. Okay. All right, so everybody should be live here with me now. And we have putting together global online summits and events. I was kind of geeking out because I loved this, that it has all the people around the world. So you have this going on, and visuals are so important. I think you don't want to overlook how important visuals can be when you're putting together an online summit. You want to keep in mind that you have auditory learners, you have visual learners, you have kinesthetic learners, and there's another one that I just recently learned about that I'll have to pull up from my notes from a woman named Emily Harrison. I've been being mentored by these incredible people over the last 9 months or so, so I'm still learning as I go. But you want to make sure that you're engaging with everybody with whatever they need, whether it's auditory, visual, getting people moving. I think Lanice actually is a wonderful example of somebody who really engages people in all the different ways that you could possibly engage with someone. So what Lanice asked me to talk about today, and what I thought would be most valuable for all of you, is how we can do this. Putting together an online summit, what goes into that? What's the vision behind that? How do you organize it? How do you connect with the influencers around the world? What does that even look like? And one of the things that I learned, oh my gosh, it's pretty funny, probably about a year ago, I had never written a press release in my life. And now I've probably written somewhere between 50 and 100 press releases in the last year. And many of them have gotten picked up by at least 2 to 4 networks, including ABC, NBC, and other major news outlets. So the first thing you want to do is you want to figure out where you're going to stream your event. You want to figure out how you're going to stream it, and when you're going to stream it, and what you're going to stream and why. The other thing that's really important is figuring out if you're going to have a live event, just like Lanice is doing today, or if you're going to have a pre-recorded event. There are pros and cons to both. The pros to having a pre-recorded event is then you can coordinate with everybody's schedules and you can seamlessly have everything work together. The cons with having a pre-recorded event is it's harder to have that live interaction. Now, having hosted a lot of events in the last year and online series, one of the little tips and tricks for anybody out there, if you are pre-recording your event and you want to get feedback from the audience and have their participation when you stream it on a certain platform, I highly recommend that you reach out to everybody in the network, and that what you do is you ask them what matters to you. What are the questions that if I could put you in front of Bruce Lipton or Deepak Chopra, what are the questions that you would want to ask them live? So you want to know about this. Now, the other thing too that I had an opportunity to reflect on when we were planning our first big event on March 9th is we were thinking, gosh, we would love to have the Dalai Lama participate because we want people around the world simultaneously meditating. But then you get into the, not obstacle, but the opportunity of choosing what time zone is important. So when you're dealing with time zones, we're like, okay, well, if we do India, then we're going to miss most of the people in the United States and vice versa. So in the long run, for our very first big event, we wound up choosing a time that was at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which really worked well for a lot of places around the world because it's 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. in the UK, 9 p.m. in Paris. And so it was a very viable time zone. Unfortunately, though, it did leave out the people who were in India, which was at 12:30 a.m. that time. So you want to factor that in. And another way that I've seen, for example, the Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement, they did it very well by doing different events around the world on different days. So they had a European day of speakers. They had an Asia day of speakers. They had a United States day of speakers. I've included some platforms here of different ways that you could broadcast. Right now, we're simultaneously using StreamYard and Facebook Live. And what you're going to notice about a lot of these things that we're talking about is each one of these It's about combining the different ways to do it together. It's not just about one or another. You want to have it all work together with ease. So these are just a handful of ones that you can do. You could do Zoom in conjunction with Facebook Live. You could do like what we're doing with StreamYard and Facebook Live. You want to figure out who is your audience, though. Where is your audience? I know one struggle that a lot of people have when they put on big events is that they might have an event that they're streaming only on Facebook, but then you're missing all the people who are not on Facebook or don't have a Facebook account. So that's why I've seen a lot of success with events where you stream it live on Zoom, but then you have to pay for, say, up to 1,000 people if you need that many people, and simulcast it at the same time on Facebook. And that's something that goes into the who, what, when, where, and how, which we just went over. And this is very broad strokes that we're going to be doing this, obviously, in a short amount of time today. So I wanted to give you just a couple fun little do's and don'ts of what you could do to be effective when you're putting on your first online event. Time. Time is your friend. Give yourself plenty of extra time. As much time as you think you need. Oh, I'm going to need 5 minutes. Give yourself an extra 10. Prior to any of the online events that we do, you always want to try and give yourself a window of about 15 minutes. Now, I will tell you, the bigger the influencer is, the less time that you're going to have to prep them. You know, when we're dealing with Deepak Chopra's schedule for some of the events we've done together, Deepak literally has minutes in between one event to another event. Sometimes if you can get the 10 minutes before, it's great because it gives you time for an audio visual check. And it can hurt your event if the people, no matter how big or famous they are, if they can't be heard well. We've gone through that with some of the events that we've done before, and you just want to make sure to have a good amount of time to work out any potential technical kinks or audiovisual kinks. You know, this was something that I did not think about before I put on my first event, and it's something that Teresa had taught me. And she said, Jen, you want to have somebody who holds a container for the space. What do I mean about that? What I mean is that you want to have somebody who is there consistently. So either if you're doing an all-day event, that person is there all day. If it's a multiple-day event, that person is there all multiple days. Or you could have maybe 2, sometimes 3 hosts. There was a great event, I think it was called Unify, that was done around the world with Oprah and many world leaders from around the world back in May. And they did a great event where I think it was Tim Shriver was the main host. And they had people coming in and out, and Tim would kind of pass off the baton here and there. But you really want to have a space that people feel comfortable in, because if you have it just kind of haphazardly hopping from one person to another, you might not have that consistency that people need. You know, don't underestimate having a plan and a vision. Long before I started putting on online events, I've been putting on in-person events for about 15 years to raise money for children and education and cancer. And one of the things that I found to be so valuable is to have a great team and to have that team get behind the vision. And we're going to talk in a moment about how to do that. You know, the things that I've learned from doing many online speaking engagements, online events, in-person events, don't try to cram too much. It's one thing if you have a live event and you have multiple stages and speakers, it's not going to be as overwhelming for people. But people get Zoom burnout. People get online burnout. So you want to make sure not to, as my business coach years ago said, have people drinking out of a fire hose. If people are drinking out of a fire hose because you're throwing too much at them too fast, it can be overwhelming, and then they're not going to be interested in whatever it is that you're offering or in doing further events with you. And that ties into the next point, which is do not send mixed messages. Take it always back to your vision. What is your vision? What's your intention? Why does this matter? And the last one is don't wait until the last minute to promote your event. This was a big one with a lot of the influencers. For example, there was an organization called HeartMath that we were partnering with. And HeartMath needs weeks in advance to be able to promote anything out to their several 100,000 followers. So if you're doing this, can you put an event on like we did, where I think it was March 6th, where we innovated, maybe it was March 5th, where we innovated the idea on a Thursday. And on Monday, the event was executed. It can be done but it's a lot of running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And if you do have the time space, you can do a lot more, although a lot of organizations have been a little bit more flexible on that during these COVID times. Vision. Vision is everything. Know what you want. I am such a big advocate of vision because this is where the idea that I had that day was birthed. Sitting on my couch, I had this vision of over 1 million people coming together in meditation, and how that when we did that and we could be in coherence, what that would provide for everybody in the world. So you want to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's the intention? How do I want the audience to be left? Anytime, whether I'm putting on an online event, whether I'm doing our Monday Coalition for Global Unity meditations, or doing a speaking engagement or hosting a show, I always start off by looking at, who do I want to be? Look at Lenice. I love who she's being. She's being playful, fun, joy, exuberance. And you want to look at, do you want to be authentic? Do you want to have a somber tone? Do you want to be playful and light? And you want to be sure that you're clear on that whoever's hosting it is clear on that, and that whoever is participating as a speaker or presenter is clear on the vibe. What's the vibe that you want to create? What's the intention? And finally, what do you want people to be left with? When somebody leaves your event, your online summit, whatever it is you put together, what do you want people to say about you after you've left that event? What are they going to talk about when they're in groups together or tell their friends about your event? You want to create that rather than reacting to things in life. You want to proactively look at what matters and how you can create that. So I love to write it down. And we're going to talk, there's a project management board I personally love called Trello, Trello, and I'll include it. It's in the resources section at the end of the PowerPoint. And with Trello, what you want to do is you can actually write down your vision statement, and you can track all the different people. And we'll get into in a moment how and why you would want to do that. But I like to write down your vision statement somewhere that everybody who's a part of it can be clear on what it is. Budgeting and expenses. I have good news. And I have bad news. You can spend $0 on a budget for something like this, and you could spend millions or tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. So there is no right or wrong. Whatever budget you have is great. If you don't have a budget, then you just need to know that, maybe Speakers for Goodwill will do free speaking gigs. I know a lot of world thought leaders right now are actually doing more pro bono events than they've ever done before because of the online Zoom formats and other live streaming formats. So if you were going to do an online event, this is probably a really good time to do it if you have a very little budget, because a lot of people are not expecting to be paid. Now, one thing you can do in lieu of paying people is something called affiliate linking. I am by no means an expert at it, but it is a wonderful way to generate revenue for yourself and for the people in your online summit. And I've included actually a link at the end of the top affiliate classes that you could take out there that are online marketing programs of how to learn to affiliate link. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you have Deepak Chopra and you have Oprah Winfrey, and they're both going to be on your online summit. What you can then do is have specialized URLs, specialized websites that will show that, oh, okay, every book that we just sold for Deepak for his new meditation live book, okay, every one of those, I'm going to get $1 back, or vice versa. So you want to have a way to track affiliate linking and special ticket sales and revenue sharing. It's a very complicated thing that we don't have a lot of time to get into, but there's a great link at the end with resources for you on that. There are things you can spend money on, and then there are things that, again, you can get for free. There are great services like MailChimp, SurveyMonkey, Constant Contact that cost little to no money, especially to start. And as I mentioned, Trello, I've been able to get by with all the online events that I've done with using the free version of Trello, which is an app or a website, and it's super user-friendly. Team costs, that's another thing, is that, yes, you may need to have event planning consultants. You may need to have social media team members, Or you might have people who are willing to do it to gain experience as interns. So that's another way that you could potentially cut costs. Press releases, unfortunately, I'm not personally familiar with a way of cutting out that cost. There are packages that you can buy. I think it winds up being about $50 per press release that you wind up doing, but you could buy a package of 10 or 100 depending on how much you want to advertise your event. And then, of course, there's the cost of a streaming provider. So depending on the platform, you might be able to use something like Facebook Live or Instagram Live for free and have a cheap version of Zoom and do that as well. So there's a lot of ways to work around the cost. And at the top, I also mentioned that you have several different ways that you could get sponsors involved. You could have financial sponsors, so people who their brand is all over your event. You could have a branded event by, say, like Awake TV or Deepak Chopra or whomever that would be in alignment. If you're doing something on health and wellness, maybe Kaiser Hospital or Blue Shield would be interested, and they would pay you $5,000 or $10,000 to have their branded logo all over the event. Now, something which is called in-kind or media promotional is you have people who might also donate media services, promotional services. You might even find, a publicist who's willing to help you and then put their logo on all your marketing material. This is something I learned many, many years ago from throwing in-person charity events, is that these are all ways that you can move through this. So again, this is a lot of information to cover in a short time. So I'm just going to give you high-level points and then have Lenise share this PowerPoint with you if you're interested in it. Number one, as I just said, find a project management software. You're going to have bios, you're going to have pictures. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces that you want to tie in. Have a team lead. Many, many years ago, I learned about all of this organizational development stuff through a program called Landmark Worldwide. And there was a program that I adored called the Self-Expression and Leadership Program. And what they taught us to do is how to delegate. You cannot do this all yourself. You need people to help you. Now, I've listed a lot of roles here that you might need, like a graphic designer, a marketing person, choosing somebody who's a celebrity liaison influencer. That in and of itself, depending on how big your event is, could be a cumbersome task. So you want to make sure this could be one person. It might be 6 people. They might be volunteers or they might be paid. But these are things that you want to start to think about as you begin to plan your event. Now, connecting with influencers. This is fun. One of my all-time favorite things, and this is what I said I did March 6th to March 9th. I was sitting at Angelina's cafe, drinking hot chocolate and eating croissants, and I was going one by one through people on LinkedIn. And a tool I found that, again, is free to test out. You can, if you put in your email, it's free to test out as a trial, is called Rocket Reach. rocketreach.co. And again, it's also in the links at the end. But that's how I was literally calling up people from the mayor of Paris, Bruce Lipton. It was funny, very sweet, nice gentleman. I had reached out to him at the time to see if he wanted to participate in the global meditation with us. And he was flying to New Zealand, and now we're connected for another global event that we're doing. And you would just be amazed at the people who you're going to connect with. I made so many wonderful connections. Now, if you send out maybe 50 emails, if you get 2 to 3 responses from high-powered influencers, that's a pretty good amount. I think when I did that event, when I was between March 6th to March 9th, I probably sent out somewhere between 30 to 40 emails, and I got, I think, 5 to 10 responses back from influencers, some of whom were available to participate and some weren't. And so you can also, there's so many different ways. I mean, I teach 2-hour classes alone on how to leverage social networks and reach out to people. So this is a much deeper, more in-depth thing. But you can use Twitter direct messaging. You can include somebody on a tweet. One of my dear friends who is a celebrity stylist, she once direct messaged somebody on Twitter and wound up being featured in a book because she reached out and had a common interest with them. So it depends. LinkedIn is kind of for people in the business world who might be a friend of a friend. Twitter is for people who you don't know at all. Also, Instagram could be used in that way. Rocket reach, I love for the people who are really hard to reach. I got great emails. Somewhere in there, I sent Oprah an email. Did she respond? Not yet, but I'm still waiting on her response. So you can have a lot of fun. A rocket reach was personally my favorite for reaching out to influencers, but it really depends on who it is that you're trying to get in contact with. And sometimes I realized a bullet there is missing, that you might want to try agencies and find out who is the representative or manager and reach out to that manager. Now, what to say when you reach out to them? This was something I was taught years and years ago by the most well-networked guy in the world at the time. And he said, you know what, Jen? No matter who you want to reach out to or get in touch with, whether it's Bill Gates or Kim Kardashian, you want to find out what matters to them. And then you want to speak to what matters to them in whatever way that you reach out to them. If you're sending a note to their manager or publicist or whomever it is, or if you're sending a direct note to them, you want to appeal to what matters, and also talk about, if you do already have other influencers on board, like attracts like. So if you get one influencer, it's kind of like a moth to a flame, and it becomes much, much easier. So see who you know, who are the people that you already know who are influencers. And that can be one of the most powerful ways to connect with other influencers. Use LinkedIn. Sometimes you'll see on LinkedIn that your second connection knows Obama or whomever it might be. And so it's actually much easier than you think to connect with people who you really want to connect to. And there's a whole spiritual side of it, which is that we can all manifest whatever we want, but that's for a different, different day and series. Creating a press release, this is the main reason why I actually wanted to do PowerPoint, and then we can skip out of this and go back for any questions you guys might have, is creating a press release can garner a lot of global attention. You want to have a great headline. For those of you who are considering putting on an online event, I'm not a big news person, but what I do like to do is I like to look for the news updates that I get on my phone, the notifications, and I notice what are the notifications that catch my attention. And for me personally, I've noticed a lot of the times they're questions or did you know blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to show you, you do want to include bios and company information at the bottom of it. And if you can, get a great quote from one of the presenters. So I kind of took some screenshots here. You want to have the who, the what, the when, and the how. I've made this mistake on many press releases that I sent out. Of the 100 I sent, there was one where I forgot to send out the time. And a lot of times the press release companies will allow you to edit it, but it's really hard once it's already gone out and been distributed around the world. And then you want to make sure that you know what's the call to action. What is it you want people to be doing about this? So here is an example. These are 3 press releases that were recent that I had get picked up. And you can see that a lot of them are questions. That's what I found personally. I'm by no means, I am not a marketing expert. I've never taken a marketing class in my life. I self-taught myself this. And I just happen to personally notice, much like emails, something I'd learned years ago in an online or in a class that I was being taught about how to, well, I guess it was a marketing class, how to market yourself better, is to ask a question to get people to open an email. And I found that the same was true of a press release. What does the former chairman of PlayStation Studios have to say of the future of leadership? That was a gentleman, Sean Layden, who joined us on Get Yourself the Job, a show I host on Mondays on job hunting. Or how do you play your hand, your career like a hand of poker? All these things, it's like, oh, would that cause me to actually want to open it up? And as you can see, like ABC, NBC, these are all big places who are picking up the press releases. Now, here is a sample of the actual content of a press release. So this was the one with Sean Layden. And you can see that it is not more than a paragraph. You really don't want to have a long press release. You want it to be short, sweet, to the point. And I talked to a publicist who said this is almost more of an event release when you're putting on an online event, because you're telling them about something that's going to happen. And you'll notice it has information, you have important things linked in there, and all in all, you have a call to action. You can go here to find the job or to find the show. You can click here, and you want to have a lot of hyperlinks within the press release. So I'm trying to go through a lot of this. I want to give you guys time for questions. These are the resources that I highly recommend. It's a link to the top streaming platforms, the project management program I love called Trello, an example of the ongoing online summit we've been doing with the Coalition for Global Unity. That's free for people to tune into on Mondays at noon, or you can click that link. Rocket Reach is my favorite for obtaining contact info. The press release website I personally use for all 100 or so of my press releases was EIN Newswire. And then this is a good article on budgeting and planning. And then here's something that you wouldn't normally think about. When you're doing an online event, it gets to be tedious to try to read every person's bio. There's an app I was introduced to that you can install directly onto your computer called Prompt Smart. And it's a voice activated thing. So as you're reading somebody's bio, it voice activates and goes through the bio so you don't have to be scrolling or reading a piece of paper. I personally love it and use it for all my shows. That's also the link for the affiliate marketing programs and an online business management site that I have been referred to and I have not personally used, but I hear great things about, is called Carta. So this is my information. I'm going to hand it back over to Lenise because I think our time is just about up now today. So I'm going to stop sharing and go over here to Lenise and see if you guys have any questions for us. Oh, I don't think I can
Sometimes
hear
you have to unmute. Okay.
I know, right?
So with saying that, how can people get over like if like the audio goes out, or how can they get people back on track if there are some major mistakes that happens during the online event?
Oh, what a great question. And that does happen. We didn't, it was so funny. You and I were joking about that before we went live, Lenise. Be prepared. I think in one of the slides I said, have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. Is you want to know that at any moment something can happen. In fact, the day that we did the event with Deepak and other leaders around the world, Deepak had some of the biggest followers. He has 2 million, and people often, stream 50 to 100,000 at a time. And when we started streaming with Deepak, the connection got lost. And so the best thing you can do, so there was probably 1 to 2 minutes where people were paused around the world being like, oh, what just happened to Deepak Chopra? And what you have to do is just roll with it and move right back into it. If you spend too much time apologizing, it becomes muddy and icky. And it's the same thing if you're in an interview. Years ago, the first company that I sold was a recruiting company. And the advice I gave people in an interview is if something gets, messy or you say the wrong thing, don't make it a big deal. Instead, if you're not significant about it, it won't be significant to the whole event. The same is true for speaking engagements, for online events. So when the Deepak hiccup happened on March 9th, we just said, oh, yeah, welcome back. Here we go. Technical glitch, and move on. And you just make it light and fluffy and move on.
So we do have a question here from Natasha. If someone struggles with approaching other people, what are some ways to make the interaction less awkward? Thank you, Natasha. That's a great question.
Really great question, Natasha. I have a special homework assignment just for you, Natasha, and for anybody else out there who's struggling with this, because I personally struggled with this years ago. I'm actually kind of an introvert and I get weird. I'd rather be sitting at home reading a book, and it takes an energy to be out there and to get messy and mess up, right? And so, Natasha, what I would say is I invite you this week to go out and get 3 no's. This was an exercise that was given to me. I remember exactly where I was. I was at a Hyatt airport at San Francisco, and I was in a program on expanding and personal development. And they said, listen, I want you to go out and come up with a made-up program and offer it to people for an exorbitant amount. Like at the time, for me, offering a program for $3,000 or $4,000 was like, what? And so they said, we want you to go and offer it to 3 perfect strangers, but your intention, Natasha, is to get a no. You want people to say no. So I was shaking. I could barely even walk up to the first person at the Hyatt, Natasha, and I was like, I am Jennifer Hill, and I have this thing, and it's $3,000, and do you want it? And the person's like, no, have you lost your mind? And I was so embarrassed. I was like bright red. It was my worst fear. And so I went to the second person I found, and these are random strangers at an airport hotel. And I went to the second person, and they gave me side eye, and they're like, what? No, you get away, you weird creepster. And then third person, Natasha, the third person I went up to, I said, no, I have this program and it's $3,000. And the guy's like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And I was like, what? But when that happened, the reason I give that homework assignment, Natasha, you can do it for anything. You can go ask somebody out who you think is attractive, invite somebody to something that you don't think they'll say yes to. And the goal is to get 3 no's. So that's why you want to start off with a goal of getting 3 no's. And the more, Natasha, that you get uncomfortable and you get messy and you get ugly. When I reach out to these influencers, Natasha, when Deepak Chopra said yes to interviewing with me, I had been hosting a television show for all of 5 weeks. And I said, could you maybe ask Deepak if he wants to join me on the show that nobody's ever heard of? And when I got a yes back, I was in tears. I was crying. I was so afraid. And it wasn't that I hadn't met celebrities, didn't know people. I just didn't feel important enough. And the other thing, Natasha, I would say, and for any of you out there who are having this experience, my dear mentor and friend, Arthur Samuel Joseph, wrote a book called Vocal Leadership. And he's worked with like Pierce Brosnan, Tony Robbins, just the incredible world leaders. His book for any speakers is necessary. And he said to me, Jen, tell yourself in the mirror every day, I love you. I love you. And the more you learn to love yourself, no matter whether anybody says yes or they say no, it doesn't matter. Because if you love yourself, you own your power, and no matter what happens, it's all going to work out.
Y'all see why Jennifer is the bomb. Jennifer said yes to me, guys. So I was like, oh my God.
You said yes to me. Oh my gosh, I want to be on your show. I look forward to seeing Lenise worldwide.
Yeah, so we do have a few more questions here. Let's go. Here we go. And a Facebook user asks, how many guests are too many for an online event?
So great question. There is no such thing as too many unless you're at Zoom. This has actually been an issue that I've seen with multiple online events. It's your Zoom capacity, and it really puts people off and they will not come back to your event again. So if you're sending out a Zoom link, say you choose Zoom as your main streaming platform, and maybe you have a maximum of 100 people allowed online, and 101 people try to come on, and that one person who gets kicked off, they now dislike your brand and they're not interested in coming on again. Or if you have 1,000 people and the 50 people extra who want to join. So that's why it's important to make sure, where are you advertising? What I've seen works really well for that, to prevent that from happening to the person who asked that question, is to have a registration. Do not share your Zoom link with the public, because then they'll get disappointed and frustrated when they can't log in when you hit capacity. Do say, hey, if you want to join us on Zoom, build your email list and say, put in your email and we'll send you the Zoom link the day of. And for anybody else who's interested, you can post it on Facebook, but that way people won't be disappointed. So there is no such thing as having too many people on, and you have to talk to your provider. It's all Vimeo, for example, might be able to hold 1 million people versus Zoom might be able to hold 1,000. So each one of them is a platform-specific provider question. But in general, there's no such thing as too many people, as long as everybody who wants to join can.
How many, far as guest speakers, would be too many on the opposite end, do you think?
Great question. It depends on if you're doing, are you doing 1 hour? Are you doing 2 hours? It really depends on the context of the time. I would say I've hosted events where you've had summits with, say, 7 speakers in an hour. It gets to be too much. It really does. And actually, my mentor, Arthur Samuel Joseph, there was a series that I did with HeartMath. And you can find it on awaketvnetwork.live, and you'll see what I'm talking about in the series. And it was a new series we were doing with these summits of how to help everybody with COVID. And when we got to the one where we had, I think, 5 or 6 panelists plus me, and there were 7 of us in the course of an hour and a half summit on health and wholeness, it got to be a little much. And Arthur gave really great feedback. He said, Jen, being in broadcasting for 50 years, what I would recommend when you're doing that in the future is have no more than 2 to 3 people on in a window at the same time. And some of the organizations have done it, where you'll see Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden and 10 other thought leaders. But sometimes it gets overwhelming for the audience. So I would say really try to focus from what Arthur taught me on having like 2 to 3 people in a conversation at once. And then you have the next speaker in the waiting room. And also a lot of the influencers would appreciate that because they're not committing to 5 or 8 hours of a whole day. They're committing to their time slot of 12 to 12:30. I need you to be in the Zoom room.
And I think you kind of answered this already, but I want to make sure that I acknowledge the question. And what's a good time frame for an event?
Yeah, great question.
So
So it really depends on what audience, who is your audience? That's why you have to ask yourself, well, what market are you catering to? And I love what PSSM did, the Pyramid Spiritual Societies movement, who, funny story about them, they connected to us through one of the press releases. So they built 20,000 pyramids in India. And so they did a day that was Europe, a day that was Asia, and a day that was US for their online summit, which was really great. But what I would recommend is I do personally find from having hosted a lot of these and collaborated with a lot of people, 12 p.m. PT seems to be the best time if you want to capture more of the globe. If you want to capture, I think some of the statistics that I've read on this are 10 a.m. and I think it's 4 p.m. are some of the better times, on the weekends and stuff to kind of get people where they've gotten into their day. It depends on how long too. Are you doing a whole day event? Are you doing a 2-hour event? There's so many moving pieces that you have to consider in this.
So how do you evaluate that the conference was success and getting people to give you feedback, or do you base it on feedback? How do you do that?
Lenise, it depends on what your intention is. If you're creating, like our intention when we created that global meditation was to introduce people around the world to meditation and to come together in coherence and to shift the consciousness of humanity. That's a little bit hard to manage the tangibility, although funny enough that you bring that up is that there is a famous gentleman, Roger Nelson, who's like a physicist and scientist. I think he was out of Princeton. And he actually has these tools where he can measure the coherence of people around the world. And I had him go back to March 9th. And I said, listen, were there any fluctuations in coherence on that day? And he said, funny enough, there was. So he went back and he actually physically measured the coherence around the planet. And that's how we saw it. But it depends on for you. What is your goal at the summit? Is your goal to make money? Then how many sales do you get? One thing I learned years ago that was super important is if you're going to sell something, start off at the beginning saying, hey, today is about X. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about how you can join us for future things. So that was something valuable I learned years ago. But if your intention is for people to connect to greater happiness, that's a little bit more of something that you really need feedback. And if one person, for me, anytime I do something like this, if one person gets something of value, then it was worth doing. That's how I personally look at it.
Wonderful. I have a lot of questions, but we're gonna wrap it up. So you did talk about reaching out to influencers and things of that nature. And some people may have a budget and may not have a budget. So if they get someone to say yes, how can they properly honor that person? What are some things that they could offer them?
One thing is strategic alliances. So if you already have an email list, so one thing you could possibly do, and I'm going through this right now with an event that we're collaborating on with global leaders, is who else is going to be participating? Who else do they want to align their names with other people? Does the person who's putting on the event, do they already have an email list? Are they going to market it? How many viewers, how many followers do they have? Some influencers, I've noticed a lot this year that people who normally would not do things for free are doing it for free in this year because they feel like they want to give in the spirit of COVID. So that's why it goes back to what matters to them. For some people, they want to give back. For some people, they want to get their book out there. For there's so many different things, but you have to figure out what matters most to that influencer and figure out a way to be of service, because anything in life, if it's not reciprocal, then you can have an off balance and a lack of, you can have animosity, you can have you know, a lot of things where and then you don't want to work with the person again. So you always want to find out, how can I be of service? Anytime I'm working with somebody like Deepak or, you know, any Roland McCready at HeartMath, I'm like, hey, what can I do to help you with what matters? What do you need support with right now? And find ways to be of service. We all have gifts and talents and ways to contribute. And not ask too much. If any of us ask too much, like if you push and you're like, oh, can I have a little more? Can I have a little more? Can I get more of your time? Then it creates a lack of harmony.
Yes, that is really good. I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I know I did. So I am going to post your contact information, but if you could share verbally with everyone how they can contact, how they can support you, how we all can support you, what you need from us, we would love to hear that now.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, probably if you Google me, Jennifer K. Hill, all of the different websites, the latest book, 101 Spiritual Tools for Uncertain Times, comes up. I would say probably go to the website. I'm about to release some new series and programs, one in conjunction with my mentor and friend, Arthur Samuel Joseph, on 7 steps to vocal mastery, empowerment through voice. So I invite you to go to metabizics.com, metabizics.com, and sign up for our email list there, because we're going to have a lot of really cool upcoming releases, video launches, events, etc. Thanks so much for the person who said thank you for that. And yeah, just get in touch. I'm at Jen Hill Speaker on Instagram, or Jennifer K. Hill on Facebook, and look forward to connecting with anybody. If I can be of service to the best of my ability, I always try to respond quickly and help people wherever I can.
Yes. And you know what? Before we go, I think just because this is a speaker circle, I want to ask one question that I think will really help those that are speakers when it aligns to online conferences and things. Does that help speakers' profile by hosting online summits, or maybe even private group summits or things of that nature? How can that help them as a speaker?
Totally agree. It's so valuable and helpful to, when you do this, you're building your brand. By hosting an event, you can share email lists. And this is where some of the greatest marketers, I'm drawing a blank, I think it's the founders of Mind Valley. They did this back in 2008 and 2009 and got up to millions of dollars a year in revenue by what's called strategic alliances. So you begin to develop these relationships, and you can cross promote, because something you're talking about, Lenise, might be slightly different than what I'm saying. And the most important thing is never see each other as competition. Always see each other in all things. We are all here to uplift and inspire and lift one another up. And good comes out of it. You know, when you do these online summits, you're helping other people expose. And even if it doesn't go exactly the way that you intended to go, just know that there were things that you learned, and that too was for the good, and that it's all helping you get to exactly where you need to go in your speaking career.
Jennifer, you're going to have me crying. You are just an amazing person. Period. That's what the young people say. Period. You are amazing. This has been so fruitful, and I know that everybody who watches it, everybody who watches the replay, that you guys are truly going to be blessed by the information that was shared. So I just want to say thank you, and we honor you. We're very grateful. Okay. Yeah, we're getting a lot of little comments here. You know, that was so beautiful. That was a perfect way to end tonight. So thank you, Jennifer. Any last things before we close out?
I just adore you, Lenise. This is so much fun. And I honestly, having been speaking and getting to interview with people over the years, you are one of the best interviewers I've ever come across, and you're just never lose. Really, your energy, your light is shining through the camera, and I really mean it. I want to be, when I grow up, I want to be as authentic and loving and vivacious and just filled with love and energy. And congrats to you and everything you're doing to help people out there. And I'm intending this time next year, we'll do this again, and you'll have 3 million people or more following you.
I claim that. I manifest that. I believe it. So thank you, Jennifer. Everybody give some hearts as Jennifer leaves us. Woo! But she left a lot of information for us to feast on. And so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure that if you're not a part of the speaker circle, join us in that group so that you don't miss anything, and that you are present and you're able to engage and share information. Next month, I'm super excited. We're going to talk about selling from the stage. And we got a tip from Jennifer already when she said, like, talk in advance, like share in advance what your reason is. So I'm excited for next month. We're going to learn about selling from the stage. And so make sure you guys join us then. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Until next time, be healthy and happy, and happy holidays coming up. Bye.